today's episode, we are sharing a talk from Atta Zahedi, a second-year Master of Business and Science student at KGI. In this talk held on campus, Atta discussed his experiences of overcoming self-imposed boundaries and navigating obstacles. His goal for the talk is to help others build confidence in talking about their difficulties and to advocate for themselves.
So thanks for coming, everyone. Can you hear me in the back?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, awesome, cool. I usually mumble. So thank you for coming. I'm here to talk today about my journey to KGI and kind of the self-imposed boundaries and kind of self-advocacy I've had to teach myself to overcome and just to get here in the first place. And so to kind of start off, just kind of quick introduction to myself. Atta Zahedi, second year MBS student here for those who don't know. I have a BS in bioengineering from UCO previously, and my main goal, which I'm pretty sure most people get when I talk to them just based on how passionately I talk, is just I really like creating medical devices for people because as we'll go through my story, you'll see I kind of grew up using medical devices since I was about 2 to 3 years old. And what are the other goals I would have? It's having fun, too. So we'll kind of go into that as well. So we'll kind of start with the beginning of my journey. So I was born up in Redding, California. For those who don't know, it's kind of in the boonies in the middle of nowhere. My mom was kind of visiting her only brother in the U.S. who owns a farm. He's very much a recluse. The only Persian guy I know who is very much a recluse in California. Great guy. So we were born there. Then we kind of went back to Japan because we were living in Japan for 3 years prior. And then we went back to Iran up until I was about 2.5 years old, where we lived in Tehran, right? Oh, and my family's here too, everyone. For those who don't know. So we lived in Tehran for about 2 years. And then this is kind of where the story kind of starts, I guess. And so I don't think most people know.
Behind us.
Oh, just in case. So I didn't always used to be in a wheelchair at first, actually. I'm not sure if people do that before. So kind of just clearing things up a bit. So we'll go into my accident, which happened when I was about 2.5 years old. And long story short, it was on a beach with my family. I was playing in the sand by myself, and apparently no one was really watching things going on. And actually, I can go into more detail, actually, it's a little bit fun. So my uncle, he makes music for Persian movies in Iran. He actually got an award, went to an award show in China, I think last year, right? Yeah. So we went to the Caspian Sea, actually, to where he was putting up a movie set and everything. And there was a guy in a truck just kind of putting boulders up along the beach to set up a scene. And he didn't see me and kind of just flat down right over me. Pretty much ripped off the most of the skin off of my back, lower legs. Took most of the muscle. I don't have most of the muscle below my trapezius. Going farther down as well. You can kind of see here, my skull was even damaged a bit as well, so they had to hold that together as well. And those were kind of the most severe injuries. I actually can move my legs a little bit, so like the nerve damage isn't too particularly bad. I have a severed sciatic nerve. So for UKGI people who want a little bit of bio knowledge, I have pretty low level of damage. I've never actually done a full physical to kind of test the severity, but it's pretty much down right around here, maybe a little bit on the lumbar, but mostly below that. So some of the other stuff was muscles removed, multiple skin grafts. I actually have most of the skin on my back is from my legs, as weird as that sounds. I have a whole bunch of other things, broken bones, dislocated joints. Like my left leg isn't actually fully connected to my hip. It's actually held in place by 2 broken pins. which doctors have never really bothered to take out because there's just too much scar damage there in the first place. I have a whole bunch of other scars for various surgeries, and overall, over the course of about 23 years, I've had 30 plus surgeries, ranging from places in Iran to London, where my mom took me basically on a life-saving mission around the globe, actually. So we went to London for a month. We went to Syria, I think, for like a week or so. No? Oh, never mind. different journey. And ultimately, or do I have something else? Oh, and so of course this led to a very frustrated me growing up with all these problems. I have cute little child photos, by the way. I hope they're add a little bit of levity to it. And so we ultimately ended up at Children's Hospital on Sunset. And this is actually where my first memory is waking up in the hospital bed. When I was about 3 years old, about 6 months afterwards. And I don't have any memories before that. And I know most of you know that I really like the color orange. I just get talking about it all the time. It's a happy color, sunsets and all that, but the main reason is when I woke up in the hospital, the first thing I remember is a nurse bringing me orange ice cream. And so that's kind of the thing I always go back to whenever I see orange, and that kind of just always makes me happy. And if you go to Children's Hospital, this photo is actually still there, because we were kind of like a special case, my mom and I. And we actually lived in the hospital for 6 months in the Ron McDonald charity house, because we came here with no money, no friends or anything, just a whole bunch of support and friends. We actually have like a stack of letters from around the globe, like this tall, written in every language possible, mostly Farsi. And so yeah, to this day, there's still a photo of me up in Children's Hospital, and I like to go and see the old doctors that I used to go with. Although most of them aren't there, so it's kind of funny that I outlasted most of them, actually. And so this kind of started my passion for medical devices, really, because growing up, you had MRI machines, ultrasound machines, even my rocker, which is, I use this with a full body brace, so you can't see underneath the really horrible overalls that my mom used to make me wear until I was like 12 or so, I think. So I have a full body brace, and it goes from the toes all the way into my armpit, and that kind of helped me walk with this brace. And using these medical devices, even my wheelchair, as you can see me here in preschool, always really happy where I knew medical devices could take me, because I knew without them, I wouldn't kind of be where I am right now. So going on, and then kind of the other biggest help in pursuing my passion was my family, which pretty much came all the way from Iran to LA just for me, which is pretty impressive for them, so I always like to thank them for that. And then of course my friends, this was actually a surprise party that my friend Jessica, who's on this photo, threw for me after I came back home from a surgery one day. They kind of just dressed up my whole room, and these little things that would just mean a lot. Because there were a lot of times when I would just come back from the hospital and not just shut down completely. And my friends and family always helped me get through it, so I hope it's a big thing. So I like to talk a lot about my passion and stuff, and that's because I have a really bad habit of ignoring the past. So some of the things are epithets that I've encountered in my life, the constant struggles, inability to participate in various events, and just feeling different in general. So I don't usually like to bring up stuff like this, but for epithets, I remember being told in purple as early as the 2nd grade, I believe. And those are kind of things that kind of stick with you as a kid, and things you kind of, I'll talk more into it later about what these kind of lead to, which I should actually talk about. The arrows. Segue. Constant struggles, always going to the hospital. From elementary to high school, I pretty much had a surgery or two, probably an average of 1.5 maybe-ish, every year. So just the constant doctor's appointments and everything takes a real big toll on just pursuing my passion and just my overall life goals and an ability to participate. Of course, as a kid, especially back in the 90s, there weren't as many wheelchair accessible events, especially in elementary school. Having to carry my own books around in my lap while also having to push myself at the same time too, without any sort of events, just kind of stuff like that, or field trips where they would have to get a secondary bus, and sometimes they couldn't, so I had to make sure someone else could take me or else I couldn't go. And then just being different in general, it's pretty self-explanatory, I guess. But it kind of lead to things like self-doubt, especially the epithets, which a lot of the times I question whether or not I should really be at a place like KGI or at UCR or my friends even, just enjoying myself. There's a lot of problems that seep up every now and then. Feeling like a burden, of course, obviously, because even though I had to sit through all the hospital appointments, my family was the one that always had to drive me there and sit by when they could have been doing other things. So this is kind of one of the things you have to deal with when you have a disability, is kind of the pressure you put on the people around you, which you always tell yourself it's something that's not your fault and it's not their fault and it's just the world being unfair, but you can't always help the voices in your head telling you every once in a while it's your fault. Loneliness, of course, not just from the inability to participate, but I spent many lonely nights in the hospital as well. A lot of nights just by myself, wondering what would be the next thing I would do if I ever got out of the hospital bed in the first place. And then, of course, not being able to properly tell people the feelings I had in the first place, the sorrow and my loneliness, and just being able to connect afterwards too, because especially as a kid, it's kind of hard telling other kids who are just going around playing kickball or whatever, the struggles you're going through. And that definitely, and then of course, especially as a man, there's always the compensating part as well. Being able to compensate for the things I can't do, or even little events such as people talking slow to me when I go grocery shopping. Very, very odd. I always find it very confusing because it's like I wouldn't be at the grocery store and driving myself unless I could handle myself, but there's always one or two, and then you always have to, or at least I always have to, overcompensate afterwards. So push doors as hard as I can, get my chair in as quickly as possible, try to be as intelligent in conversations as I can be, so that people don't doubt either my intelligence or my strength or my will. And so these are some of the obstacles I faced in coming through KGI and just my education in general. So I'm going to go into my ideas for navigating these sort of obstacles and what's worked for me and what hasn't worked for me, and kind of just hopefully start a dialogue on if you see any signs of other people struggling, kind of like what you can do to help them, what you can do to help yourself if you feel that you can't talk to other people about the struggles you're going through. So I always like to say you should always look for the helpers, and probably one of the biggest people that kind of helped jumpstart my life, besides family and friends, of course, is Professor Rogers over at UCI. So one of my many surgeries right after high school was literally a week or two after high school graduation. I had a skin muscle flap surgery, which is basically I had a giant pressure sore where the muscle was exposed. It was about like a 7-inch diameter hole, basically, on my lower left butt, I guess. And so that was, had surgery for that, where they just put the skin over, essentially, with a little bit of artificial skin as well. And then that didn't take, so it actually kind of split open and the more muscle was exposed, and it was actually a problem I had to deal with for about 2.5 years or so, where I just basically had an open wound up until I was about 20, 21-ish. 21 to 22. And so this kind of just stopped me from going to school and pretty much trying to complete my passion. I had to go to community college and take just classes at my own pace and everything, which I always made sure not to exacerbate the situation, and always try to be happy with my own pace as well. And so that kind of hit off about 3 years in, when my sister actually invited me, because she was starting her PhD at UCR, and so she invited me to a house party at Professor Rogers' house, and he was one of the many people, I won't say few, because there have been many people who see my passion, my potential, and always tried to help facilitate that. And so I remember when I went to his house, first thing he does is hand me a drink, which I thought was totally weird and completely shattered my expectations of what a professor would be like. And I believe he also, and this is just his sort of caricature, I've been out to this place for Christmas parties, where he would like drunkenly sing Christmas carols with other faculty. Whenever I would pass by his office when I was at UCR, he would like, Atta, come in. And then they'd be like, what is it, Professor Rogers? And then he would like turn his monitor around and be like, yo, you get some of these spinners on your wheelchair. Like, why are you like roaming this out? And he just always say just silly stuff like that, because he was just an OG, really. pretty awesome guy. And so he was one of the people that really kind of jump-started my education, because I'm not sure if I ever really would have left community college, because the 2 to 3 years dealing with the pressure wound and just basically limiting things I could do on a daily basis just really sucked a lot of energy out of me and passion. But when I went to his house and he just started talking to me about bioengineering, and I would tell him all the things I want to do, and he's like, sure, why don't you come to UCR? I'll put in a good word for you, and we'll make it happen. And he actually, this was actually after the application deadline had passed due, so he even made sure that my application got in afterwards and put in a good word. And lo and behold, in 2013 I got in. So major props to him, one of the people I owe a lot in my life to. And this, of course, that me graduated in 2015 from UCR, which is something I'll always be proud of. So then going kind of over back to ignoring the bad stuff. So there's always the self-doubt, which during those 3 years or so after high school really affected me. Because I really never did think that I would kind of ever leave the house. I remember even taking driving lessons for the first time after high school was like a humongous wind of freedom for me, because I always thought I would just be cooped up in the house the rest of my life, honestly. And then that kind of just feeds into itself, and you kind of think like, oh, never have a stable career, never have stable relationships, never contribute anything at all in the first place. And when you kind of grow up when you're 3 years old, and your life is basically held together with biomedical devices, it's kind of hard not to feel a little guilty that you're not contributing back to the doctors who take so much time out of their schedule, or the nurses, or even the patients sitting next to you. Because I've had a lot of friends in neighboring hospital beds who have turned out a lot worse than me, and I always feel a little bad not having been able to do anything for them so far. And that's kind of one of the main reasons why I volunteer at Loma Linda right now as well, because I like to help mentor newly disabled people to teach them how to fight the self-doubt and kind of push them more back towards education, because that really is one of the best ways to overcome a disability. And so fighting self-doubt, it's a never-ending struggle, really. There are moments when I wake up in the morning when I have like way too much back pain, and I don't even want to take the drive over to school sometimes, but it's just one of those things you got to convince yourself it's worth the fight. So I hope that's something that everyone here will sort of embody more of their own. And then one of the other big things that's always kind of helped me is just learning how to value myself. And I'll kind of go into some of the things as well, where basically one of the things I think is that anyone can be a leader. Not everybody is a leader, but anyone can be a leader. And that's one thing I always never really thought I could do myself as well, because I'm like half as tall as anyone else in this room except for Josh. So it's kind of hard to think you're a leader when everyone has to
what? It's not size, it's attitude.
Exactly. So
Still tall.
yeah, and I have the wingspan to prove that I would have been tall.
Yeah.
So anyone can be a leader. I always thought I couldn't be because people would just naturally look down to me. That's just how people talk to me. But it's kind of one of the things I had to fight with my own self-doubt and overcoming. And I actually, one of the big turning points for this was this summer internship program I did at UCLA, where I actually taught 12 to 18-year-olds, when I was 18 years old myself as well, kind of like business and leadership skills. And a lot of them actually came to me for advice from time to time. And that kind of really helped change my perspective because they were like my kids, really. And you're giving me a confused look because I haven't told you about this, Angelica, but that was one of the big moments in my life. And I should have put some photos in there, but next time. And then kind of always valuing your input as well. I know sometimes I think that I get in the way and I shouldn't really be part of a conversation in the first place. And back when people used to question my intelligence and the stuff like that, it kind of took me a while to believe that I was intelligent enough to be able to give back in a conversation, essentially. And then a big trap, like once you start thinking that, and like you'll start trying to work more towards that, right? But then you fall into the trap. Well, the only input that people will value from me is like the professional or academic stuff I can get. But you know, all of your input's always valuable. Whether it's like you're going out with your friends and you want to go see something, but you need some special assistance or something. You always like even that input is valuable. Or the story that I'm telling you guys right now, that input is valuable too, even though it's not like 100% academic or professional. So just always value your input, whether or not it's something you feel like you're compensating for in the first place. Just know you shouldn't have to compensate in the first place, and everything you say in general is always valuable. And then kind of just knowing your struggles matter as well. Because honestly, I thought like as a kid that no one would ever really know my struggle in the first place. And it's toughened me up, but it's also toughened up a lot of people I've met throughout my life as well. I've told my story to individuals, not like a group like this before, but to individuals before, and it's usually helped them put things into perspective, or as cheesy as that sounds, or just kind of help them figure things out a bit as well. And then, so knowing your struggles matter not just to yourself, but to others as well, even though it might seem benign to you at the time. That's another big thing that's always really helped me, and you should always share your struggles as well, even though it may seem like you're burdening your friends or your family. Just know that being able for them to hear what you're going through, you never know if it'll help them with something they're dealing with as well. There's people I've talked to at KGI who have told me serious personal stories after I've told my personal story before. And it's like the first time they're telling anyone in the first place, actually. And that's actually like, it happens to me a lot. Actually, I don't know why people always just kind of gravitate towards me. Not that I don't mind your problems or anything. I always love listening to other people's stories, and that's something I'll actually talk about later as well.
No, you're never burdened.
Thank you, G. Appreciate that. And then kind of one of the other bad things I always kind of ignore is combating isolation, where one of the big things that's helped me is sharing my story like I've mentioned. And one of the really big things, one of the biggest traps I fall into, and I think a lot of other people fall into as well, is thinking that like holding or like internalizing your pain will actually help you out, because you can put it back somewhere else where you can deal with it later. Usually it doesn't work out like that. Usually it kind of just makes it worse. The problem will get worse. You don't have the proper support system for it because you don't tell anyone. It'll manifest itself as physical tics and all that as well for the biologists in here. And honestly, dealing with the pain now is always so much better than dealing with the pain later, just because it really does amplify itself, and you never know what problems you could have fixed if you just share the struggles you're going through in the moment and making sure that you're fixing them when you can and not later when you are in the right mood too. It takes a lot of will and effort, but it's worth a lot at the end to do it. And I've kind of talked about this before. I didn't really expect me to ramble so much on each slide, so forgive me if I gloss over things over again. So definitely sharing your struggle, always important. Be sure to do that. Not like all the time. Don't just complain every day, but make sure it's in a constructive manner. And also, I'll talk about it later as well, always be receptive after you talk as well in case someone else needs to talk back as well. And then of course, advocating for yourself. I know I have a very visible disability, but I know other people don't. Or maybe you're just having a really tough time that day, and you're in a group project, and deadlines come up, and you just can't meet them. Maybe personal issues, mental, physical, anything really. But it doesn't hurt to, you don't have to go full out into what the problem is all the time, but it definitely helps to practice so you can kind of figure out how to best talk about it. I usually go over multiple scenarios in my head. I'm sure everyone else does. Thinking about like the worst thing you could say in a situation or the best thing you could say. Replaying over like, oh yeah, I really wish I could have said that. Internalize that and say it next time maybe. And kind of just knowing when to be adamant and suggestive. Like I said, don't be complaining every day. Because I've gone through moments where I would just be in a constant complaining mood, and that doesn't help anyone. It really doesn't. It helps start a dialogue in the end, but you got to work yourself out of that in the end. And even from the situations where it's very clear that I need help in a current situation, whether it's like a lift or just anything physical really, I always make sure not to be adamant about it, but more suggestive, because I know the person doesn't really have anything in mind. It's just something they haven't thought about before. So realizing when people just are, not to be harsh, but just ignorant in general. It's not their problem. They're being ignorant because they don't know the struggles you're going through. And honestly, when you make advocating for yourself more reflexive, when it just comes more naturally to you, you'll find that it comes more naturally to other people as well. It happens all the time whenever I organize a talk with when I organize a meeting with someone I've never met before, like Professor West. He actually, whenever I see him, he always kind of just brings up the story of our first interaction together, because he didn't know who I was, of course, because he's super busy and I'm a new student. And so when I emailed him asking him for advice, he's like, oh yeah, here, you just meet me in my office. And email him kind of reflexively, almost instantly, just say, oh, well, can we meet in the downstairs lobby instead? And I just have to say it, because I know he hasn't seen me before, and he won't know who I am. So he's like, oh yeah, I'm in a wheelchair, I can't get upstairs, can you just come down? And also the first thing he said to me as soon as he met me was thank you for clarifying that, actually really helpful. And to this day, even when I see him at a community event or something, he still brings that up, because I guess that just really made his day. So being able to just naturally be able to talk about what's bothering you in the moment helps a lot, and you'll find that people will respond to that and also kind of just reflexively tell you their struggles as well, which really helps. And then working past the self-doubt, of course, know that when you advocate for yourself, it really is about you, and you shouldn't. You can worry about what others might think, but know that it'll be a fleeting moment, and the pain that you have to go through with the self-doubt, wondering what people might say when you do advocate for yourself, no matter what it is, you can work past that. And it really does become something better later on down the road. And of course, finding the helpers, I always like to just put that back in, because it really does make a big difference. And of course, listening to stories. So kind of just go back to the original slide I had, where anyone can be a leader. You know your struggles really well, but you don't know what you don't know, and maybe someone else has a story that really kind of shows the inner leader in themselves in dealing with whatever struggle they've gone through. And that can really be an inspiration for yourself as well. So always be receptive to the idea that anyone in any situation can be a leader, and that their struggle really can help anyone else in the first place as well. Always value the input of others, not just their academic and professional opinion as well. Also kind of just mirroring back that previous slide as well. Always really important. Everyone has something to contribute, and whether it's not just in a TMP group or in a team project, or even just, everyone just has something nice to say. And then kind of just rolling into that is just knowing that everyone's struggles matter, and that's always something that you should keep your mind, especially when you see someone obviously struggling, or just acting out reflexively in a manner that's not like conductive, just know that they most likely do have some sort of inner struggle that they're dealing with.